We are cooking with wine today in the sartorial kitchen. I am spatchcocking and marinating a whole chicken with some sauvignon blanc and turning the innards into a flavorful broth for a roast chicken dinner over my aunt's house, using more of the wine and that broth for a decadent risotto, more wine for a classic French butter sauce, and topping off the bottle for a poached pear dessert with pound cake croutons. So why don't you pull up a chair and dine with us?
Back, everybody. Special episode today, as I'm going to be going over my aunt's to fix a French feast featuring sauvignon blanc. That's what we are filling in the blanc with today. And I'm starting with a roast chicken. Now I'm going to be marinating this chicken first, and I'm cutting it up now. I want to spatchcock it, because that's going to make it cook quicker. Now what is spatchcocking? It's where you take the backbone out, and once you find the backbone, you usually start on this end, and then you can just cut around both sides of that spine. And you want to have a good sharp knife for this, or you're going to be taking all day. And then you've got a nice little backbone of the chicken. Now we are not going to discard this. We're going to cook this down. So if you see, I've got a pot of water going there. I'm going to be using that to make a homemade stock that is going to be the base of my risotto that I will be making there. I'm going to throw some other things in there and just make a really nice flavorful stock. And just take the chicken and voila, and kind of break that breastbone too. And now that chicken's nice and flat. Got a nice 2-gallon Ziploc bag here. We want a bag that's big enough that this whole chicken will fit in here. Carefully put it in here, and then we're just going to slide it down. And we are ready to begin our marinade. All right, time for some flavorings here. I'm going to start with my onion. So I did rinse this cutting board off. Hold your gas. And let's see, we're going to just slice. Normally I leave the hairy end on so the onion holds itself together. But I'm doing slices, not dices. So I actually went to go ahead and cut off both ends. And then come in here and peel that off. Beautiful. Then we cut it in half. And cut those ends in half. And then just come in here and nice little, not quite 1/4-inch dices. I want these to cook down beautifully. Same with this. So not only is all of these things going to impart some really nice flavor into the chicken while it marinades, but they're going to roast with the chicken when we get it in my aunt's oven. And just throw those right in. Now you're probably saying, you have 2 onions, what about the other? This one is going to go into my broth. I'm just going to cut it into 4s. And just kind of roughly peel it. Doesn't have to be perfect because I'm using a strainer here. Anytime I make a fortified broth, I love to use a strainer because it catches everything we don't want in our soup, and then you can just pull the thing out and dump it when you're finished. Now for some garlic. I have 2 heads of garlic because you guessed it, one is going in the marinade and the other is going in the broth. So I'm just going to come in here, smash that down. Woo! And all those cloves will come apart. And then you just kind of come in there and give them a rough peel. Some of these are a little trickier to peel. And we will use our knife for that. So peel the garlic the rest of the way. Give that a little smash. And that garlic will break open and that peel comes right off. All right, that is my garlic. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So, normally I would mince this, but we're not going to do that. I'm going to leave these whole because they're going to roast and just get nice and soft and buttery. I am going to kind of slice off those little ends there. That's where they get their spice, is that little germ. And then I will probably slice these in half, these bigger pieces. All right, there is my garlic. You can make these as big or as little pieces as you like, but I really want to leave them whole. And then we're just going to dump that right in there. Beautiful. Now for the other garlic. I'm going to slice it in half. Just like that. Take as much peel off as you can. Does not have to be peeled perfectly because we're using that strainer. So you can literally just dump that right in. And then the same with this end. And for our produce, last but not least, some lemon. So the first lemon, I'm just going to cut the ends off. And then I'm going to slice that in half. And just like the onion, we're going to come in here, nice little 1/4 inch slices. And that goes right in. And if you see any seeds, feel free to kind of dig those out real quick. Because after all, we're making roast chicken, not roast lemon seeds. And then here with the other lemon. And then again, just kind of poke around for any seeds. And that goes right in. Now for the other lemon, and I'll even throw these little ends. This one, I'm just gonna, again, cut the ends off. Cut it in half, and then cut it in half again, and then I'm gonna cut those into wedges. Now this one, we don't have to worry about the seeds, because, again, we have the strainer. But I am just gonna come in here and give each piece a little squeeze to really make sure those juices get in my broth, and then dump the lemon in. I'm doing the whole lemon because I want that zest. So that peel is going to boil down and just give a nice, fragrant kind of floral note. And I love, anytime you're using citrus, if you can use the zest or the peel, do it. Now for some fresh herbs that I've picked from the garden. Several bundles of thyme. I'm just going to dump that right in. And a little more here. I want this to be nice and flavorful. And then, for these, I'm going to pick the leaves off. So literally just start from the stem and just kind of run your nails down. And those leaves come right off. And then again, with this end, I just come in, and if you get a little of the stem, it's okay, but you want to try and avoid as much of the stem as you can. And we'll throw the rest of that in here. Now I am going to give this a rough chop, just to make sure I don't have any large pieces of the stem going into my chicken. That should be good. And that is about a tablespoon or so. That's going to go right in. I've got a little bundle of sage, and that is for my broth. And then I've got some rosemary. So part of the rosemary, you guessed it, for the broth. Now this other half is going to be for the actual chicken. And again, kind of like we did with the thyme, I'm just going to come in here and run my hands down and pull all these little leaves off. And rosemary, one of my favorite herbs besides basil. It's so fragrant. You can tell when it's fresh because it's just very aromatic, and it's going to be a gorgeous addition to this dish. And then same with the rosemary. Just going to give a little rough chop. I don't want big pieces of rosemary. It's not too appetizing. So I'm just going to come in here and give it a little rough chop. So it's smaller pieces going into our chicken here. And then again, right into our bag. And that's about a tablespoon as well. So it's a tablespoon of each. And that is it for all the produce and the herbs. All right, time for some seasonings. I've got some salt here. That's going to go in my broth. A couple teaspoons of salt. A generous teaspoon of pepper. I want this to have lots of flavor. And then again with the chicken. Chicken is naturally bland, so give it all the seasoning you can. About the same amount there. And about the same amount of the pepper. Now for the broth, I'm going to come in here with my wooden spoon and just push all this down. Make sure these herbs are in the liquid. Give it a little stir so not all the salt and pepper's in one place. And you can see that chicken's already starting to break down a little. Beautiful. That's going to go for about an hour, hour and a half, just until that broth gets nice and flavorful. And then we'll let it cool and we can store that. Now for the chicken, we're starting off strong here. I've got a whole cup of our Sauvignon Blanc. That wine, it's acidic, so it's going to break down our chicken and ensure that it is going to be nice and moist and juicy and soft. And then some olive oil here, about a half cup. That's going to help everything adhere to the chicken, and it's also going to help the chicken get nice and browned once it goes in the oven. And the fun part about this is we get to play with our food a little bit. So just make sure this bag is sealed up good and tight. Try and push as much of the air out as you can. And then just kind of come in here and press this shut. You want to hear that click and it's sealed. And then we're going to come in here and massage this chicken. Turn it over too. I want to make sure all the seasonings and all that liquid and the oil and everything coats this bird completely. So every bite of chicken has the same flavor. That's beautiful. All right, I'm going to get a sheet tray out so this chicken lays nice and flat. And that's, I'd say 4 to 6 hours minimum. But this is going to rest in my fridge overnight until I'm ready to hit my ants. And again, make sure we got everything evenly dispersed here. So good. And this is going to go right in my... Alright, as you can see, this is broken down beautifully. Those onions are so soft you can probably see through them. The chicken has really broken down off of that bone. All those herbs have incorporated themselves. Even the lemon and garlic is kind of soft. So good. Alright, I'm going to come in here and give this a little taste before we plate it up. Alright. I'm going to come in here with a little more seasoning here. Another dash and a half of salt. I always wait to add my last bits of seasoning because the seasonings kind of boil away. You season in between. And just a little more pepper. Not quite as much. And I'm going to give that a little stir just to make sure that gets incorporated there. And I think we are ready to take this baby off the heat. Set it right there. And here's where the magic happens. So I bring my garbage can right into the thick of it. And that insert is hot because it's been boiling away. So I'm going to use some gloves for this. Just pull that out and let it drip. We don't want to drip our flavors all over the place. And just dump that right in the trash. Thank you for coming. That goes in my sink. And we are left with a beautiful... So I'm going to get a ladle here. And you're going to see how flavorful that broth has become. Starting with nothing but water and a few simple ingredients. We're just going to dish this up in little storage containers here. This should make about 4 quarts, give or take. Fill that all the way to the top. Gorgeous. Okay, I'm gonna set these aside and let them cool down, and once they're cooled, I'll put a lid on them and store them in the fridge, and I will see you guys at my aunt's. We're back. I'm in my aunt's kitchen, and I've got my chicken here. This has been marinating since Friday night. It's gonna be really good. All that olive oil. I've already got some of that wine in here, so that's gonna make the chicken nice and tender. I've got a nice roasting skillet here. I'm just gonna carefully pour this out. Just like that, and get all this delicious marinade out of here. So the chicken, all these goodies, the onions, the lemon, the garlic, that's going to go underneath here. So I'm going to clean that all off the top and get it underneath. And then that broth is just going to, that marinade is going to become a bit of a broth, and it's going to really help this chicken stay nice and moist. So the wings, we want to tuck those underneath because they will burn. Just the tips, as they cook really quickly. And then the same thing with the legs. I'm going to come and like that, almost like the chicken's doing squats. And then
good already.
I was just going to say that, yes.
Man.
We arrange all that here, and that's pretty good. Just a few more things before I throw this in. So I've already got all the herbs and everything there, but I want a little more oil because I want to make sure that the top of this browns nicely. I'm just going to drizzle a little over top.
And then some salt and pepper. Chicken is naturally bland, and it needs lots of seasoning. And then we're going to come in here with some pepper too, just a generous sprinkling all along the top. And then I'm going to brush this just to make sure it's evenly coated. And that is ready to go in the oven. I have already preheated this to 425. It's going to bake for about 45 to 50 minutes. We're going to take it out and let it rest. And then we'll carve it up. We're going to make a pan sauce out of the drippings. But now I'm ready to start my risotto. All right, time to start the risotto. So I need a little oil here. Just enough to barely cover the bottom of the skillet. So the oil gives us our higher burning temperature. I'm going to use a little butter here as well. The butter gives us flavor. And just pop that right in. And let that do its thing. So I've got a shallot here. It's classic for risotto. You can use onions. Really, you can throw anything you like in there. Mushrooms, however you want to flavor it. Maybe some peppers for like a Spanish version. So there's that. We leave the hairy end intact so we can dice this. And then basically come in. It's almost like lattice work, so you make lines this way. Then we come down lengthwise and cut our strips. And then if you come in, you see that we get little dices of the shallot. And if you wanted it diced more finely, you could come in here like that with the knife and mince it up, but I think that's pretty good. We'll throw away the end there. And then that's going to go right into our skillet. And that skillet is already nice and hot. You can hear it sizzle. Saute that. Classic base for risotto, shallots and garlic. Start cooking the shallot first because it's not going to take quite as long as the garlic. And then we'll throw it in last because the garlic. I'm using my jarred garlic. It cooks very quickly and it won't. Alright, so those onions have cooked down beautifully. A couple teaspoons of my garlic. And like I said, that goes really quick. Not even a minute, maybe 30 seconds. And then I'm going to go ahead and throw in my rice. This is about 2 cups. By the time we get off our liquid, we should have about 5 to 5.5 cups to eat. The risotto, classically arborio rice, but you can use any kind of grain. I've used farro before, quinoa. So I'm just stirring the rice, getting it coated in all that liquid, the oil and the butter we had in there earlier. Toasting it gives it some nice flavor. And speaking of flavor, we're going to start seasoning this. Some salt and some more pepper. About 1 minute to 2 minutes toasting the rice, and you'll just see the grains kind of change color once they've gotten that kind of toasted flavor to them. Then we can come in with our wine. Yes, more of the Sauvignon Blanc. About a 1/4 cup, just enough to cover the bottom of the skillet. And you will hear that sizzle. Throw the rice into that. That just gives it a nice edge. And just kind of let that cook down. You'll hear the sound of the sizzle start to go away, and then you know it's time to add the stock. So, what makes risotto different from regular rice, we slowly add the liquid until the rice cooks through, instead of submerging the rice completely. And this stock, you will recognize it from earlier in the video. I made this with some veggies, some lemon, and what I didn't put in the oven from the chicken. And it's got some of those herbs from the garden. So I'm going to start with about 1.5 ladles. And stir, stir, stir. You have to stir this continuously. Otherwise it clumps together and makes a mess and all the rice doesn't cook through evenly. You don't have to be aggressive, but you just want to make sure that you're distributing that broth evenly so the rice, every single rice grain is drinking it up. And then once you get low on broth, you add some more and stir, and it's just add, stir, until the rice is complete. Alright guys, time to take this chicken out. Ooh, yes, look at that. Nice and golden brown, and those onions and lemons have cooked down beautifully. That's my favorite part right there, is those lemons. When you bake them off like that, they just melt in your mouth. Now we're going to take this thing's temperature. I'm looking for about 140 to 145. Make sure you get in there good. You can even kind of come in at it at the side to make sure we're getting an accurate reading there. And I think we're good. I'm going to cover this in plastic wrap, or sorry, aluminum foil, and we're going to let it rest while our risotto finishes. Alright, time to unmold this. Oh, I've gone through just about all of our stock there on the risotto. I'm letting it kind of mellow out for now, but I'm going to get this chicken out. And doesn't that just look amazing? So this is going to move over here to our cutting board. I know it's one. There we go. And then all these goodies from the skillet are going to go on our platter.
Oh, yeah, it's very lemony.
Hold on to this because we're going to turn that into a pan sauce. And now we can carve our chicken. What was left of our marinade. I'm adding about another teaspoon of garlic to that. And just stir that out. And again, just like before, 30 seconds to a minute tops. And then a little more of our wine here. About another 1/4 cup. The rest of this is going to be for dessert. Then we bring this up till it starts to boil, and then we turn it down to simmer. It allows the alcohol of the wine to cook out, and then we're going to finish it with some cold butter, and it's going to make us a nice little thick sauce to go over the chicken. I moved my risotto over here to the high burner so we can get it to cook through. And I've got all my liquid in here, and you just want to keep stirring this until it drinks up all that broth, and then we're going to finish it off with some Parmesan. All right, that's starting to simmer nicely, so we're just going to slowly drop our butter in here. And you got to make sure it's cold butter because it's the temperature change of the cold butter and the hot sauce that's going to thicken it up. And then just come in here and stir that literally as long as it takes this butter to melt, and your sauce will be nice and thick. And then we'll pour it over top of our chicken, or we can have it on the side as the sauce if anybody wants any. And you can see this is the science of cooking. As soon as that butter cooks down, you can see the sauce is already getting nice and thick. Alright, this is just about done. This is the last bit of liquid. So I did end up doing 3 quarts. So I've still got one for another episode. And then we're going to dump, this is real Parmesan, not that sawdust stuff from the green bottle. And I'm going to pour in a good amount of that. We'll save some for garnish, and we just stir that in. And that's going to thicken this last bit of broth up, and you can see it's starting to get nice and creamy from that. And I think I'm going to go ahead and turn that. Alright, so I got a bowl here we're going to serve this out of. I'm going to dump this whole thing out and make a mess. I'm just using my ladle here. I'm going to need to pour all that out, I guess. So, I think that's pretty good. And then the rest of our cheese here.
Oh.
And then we've got a little left if anybody wants some extra. A little of this.
I don't hurt at all.
Oh, wow. That
And just ladle that over top. And then the rest we'll serve on the side if anybody wants any. And here we are. Alright guys, time to dig in. I'm so excited about this. You can see the chicken is nice and juicy still. I'm going to get some of this risotto first. Creamy, but notice from the Parmesan. It's got a little cheese to it still, but that's kind of how I like my rice. I don't want it like mush.
I like the sauce on the
Full
rice.
of flavor. And then some of our chicken with some of that sauce on it. Oh yeah, it just melts in my mouth. I'm getting back notes to all those herbs and the lemon. So good. Well, if you don't mind, we're going to finish this up. But I do have a dessert for you, so don't go anywhere. All right, guys. Well, dinner was delicious. Now it's time for dessert. I've used up the last of our bottle of wine for a poaching liquid. I'm going to be poaching some pears in. So while I finish peeling this pear, let me show you how I got that started.
I I added the rest of the wine to a saucepan and dissolved about 2 cups of sugar. Then I flavored it with some nutmeg, cinnamon sticks, and whole cloves. Gave it a good stir and let it come to a boil until it was nice and flavorful.
So I wanted to keep it simple. But pears is good and just a nice little broth. A really simple dessert. You don't have to do anything elaborate. I'm going to serve it with some pound cake croutons. Now you can make your own pound cake if you want, but I love these. They're quick, they're easy. You can do a lot of different things with them. And they're ready to go. So I've got about 4 pears here, so that's a pear each. And I am just gonna cut these in half. Just like that. And then we'll come in here with our knife and just cut around that little core piece with the seeds and all that. That's not really edible. And just kind of take that out. And they will be ready for our poaching liquid. Alright, I'm going to carefully drop these into my poaching liquid. I'm going to wear the poaching liquid. There's just barely enough room for that. Okay. I'm going to give that another slight stir. So I want all these pears to have all the same flavors. And then I'm just going to leave that on medium heat until they get nice and tender. And in the meantime, we're going to start our pound cake. Do it right now. So I've got a grill pan here. There we go. Very, very low heat. We're just going to lightly toast these. Peel it open. The other thing about the pound cake is it's very sweet, so it's going to caramelize beautifully on a grill pan. I'm going to slice about 3/4 inch thick. About like that. And then I've got the rest of my butter here. I'm just going to come in and just lightly butter that so it toasts nicely. I don't want it to just have really aggressive sear marks. I want it to get a nice toast to it. And then while our pears poach, we'll grill these off. And when they come off the heat, we'll cut them into little crouton pieces. Alright, that's cooking down nicely. Smells amazing. I'm going to go ahead and drop these on. That pan is good and hot. You can already hear these sizzling. I may have to do about half. Yeah, we'll have to wait on these last 2 pieces here. That should not take too long. About a minute and a half on each side, just so it gets nice and toasted. All right, time to flip these babies over. Ooh, look at that.
Oh.
Golden brown, you got those beautiful grill marks on there. Oh yeah, that looks great. And about a minute on that other side. And those should be good to go. Alright, this is ready to come off. And this smells amazing, guys. I know you can't smell it from home, but it smells like we've got a cake going in the oven. It smells so good. And then I've got just my last 2 pieces here. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to carefully cut that in half, and then I'm just going to cut it into cubes. I think these pears are ready to go. So I figured 1 pear each, so that's going to be 2 slices. And I'm just going to plate them just like this. We'll get a little of our sauce here on top.
I was looking for.
And then we sprinkle, just kind of place them wherever, of our croutons. And that is our dessert. All right, let's dig into this. Pears are nice and soft now. So it has a little bit of texture to it, but it's nice and juicy. And then you get those warming spices in there. Even a little bit of that thyme. And then the bread, you can just kind of soak up that sauce with it. That's why I toasted it, so it would hold up to the sauce. Oh wow, it's buttery. And then you get that texture from the grill marks. So good. Well, hate to eat and run again, but we're gonna finish this up. And I thank you guys for joining me as always. Like and subscribe, hit me up in the comment section. Yeah,